All right. So we finished another day in court. After lunch, we came back with Special Agent Adam Sully. I guess I should talk about some other things first. So let's start with Todd Engel actually filed a motion to fire his lawyer to get an extension for his sentencing. And it looks like that's going to go through, so we're hoping that he can get better representation. Once again, Todd Engel was the gentleman that decided to represent himself. The judge decided to put his counsel that he was firing as co-counsel. So when she stripped him of his rights to represent himself, he was forced to have the lawyer that he fired. This guy is completely ridiculous. I've seen him myself fall asleep in court. I've seen him watching videos in court and have a pop-up ad go off. Instead of just turning it off, he slammed his computer shut, stuck it under the desk, and it continued to play until the pop-up ad was over. He is not a good representation, so I'm really hopeful for Todd Engel. We are looking for help if you're keen on that kind of information, if you're keen on working on cases like this, and you would like to possibly get involved, please contact us. I think, we'll see how his new counsel goes, but they're looking for investigators, and contact Roger Roots. Okay, so after lunch, Adam Sully is still on the stand. This is the new guy. Special Agent Adam Sully. He's a BLM agent. He is a special agent for the BLM, so that's an investigation team, but he was a ranger before that. He went undercover at the rally on the 7th, and then he said he saw about 100 people. He went in plain clothes. This is the gentleman that helped erect the We the People poles and the sign in the middle. It was him and another gentleman that went undercover investigating the Bundys, and this is before... this is the 7th. This is before Dave Bundy was even arrested. So here we go, finalizing that there is a conspiracy, and it's a conspiracy the government made to entrap the Bundy family and get their land. So he was saying that he had pictures of Ryan Payne, Ricky Loveland, Jim Lardy, and the Bundys, and that he was sent there to identify these people. New in his testimony this time is that he stated that he saw Mel Bundy talk with Ryan Payne. And Ryan said some militia would not come until an event took place. Then he saw Mel talking to another guy, and Mel asked that guy if he was affiliated with the militia. He said no, and Mel explained that there was a general camp and a militia camp. Then he started talking a lot about James or Jim Lardy, and identifies Ricky Loveland from the picture that he was given. Then he says... let's see, he said JT, somebody named JT, told him about the militia camp because that is where the important decisions are made. And he had better weapons than the BLM and a vehicle full of ammo. He was sent there to go undercover at these rallies, at these events, just to get to talk to people and see if anyone had made a plan to interfere, is what he says. His testimony was quite short today, much shorter than the last trial. They're trying to narrow the scope for cross-examination. So we go into cross-examination, and Perez gets up and says, whoever JT is said... important decisions would be made at the militia camp instead of this hippie camp. I believe that was objected to because he was, I don't know, they had to word it separately, and it was a play with words. So he didn't get really far on that. The guy, who is it? Sully, didn't know who JT was. Tanasi says, he gets up there and says, well, you were provided pictures of Ricky and Ryan and the Bundys, but you were never provided any pictures to look for Stephen Stewart. He says, I do not recall. Of course, back to I do not recall. Same thing for Eric Parker and Scott Drexler. He was asked if helicopters were used by law enforcement on the 11th, and he did not recall that either. Then they talked about he met 3 or 4 times with the U.S. Attorney's Office, 2 times with the FBI, and that they went over possible cross-examination questions. And told him, If you don't want to answer, say, I do not recall. If we all remember, this is the reason Dan Lev is being investigated, because when he started to get investigated, he went around to all of his employees and said, I do not recall is a good answer when you're being questioned. Okay, then we go to Leventhal. He asked if he was ever in a undercover capacity other than this event. He had said that he had. He asked about a sign that he held on the 7th. That was objected to, and we didn't get to hear what his sign said, but I'm guessing that it was probably really out there to try to attract those kind of people to themselves. He points to a large group of media and says, you didn't talk to them, you didn't know what they were doing there. And then a couple more questions about JT. So then the cross-examination is over, and we come to our favorite part now, is the jury questions. We all love the jury questions. So jury question 11. Prior to April 7th, have you ever been undercover before? Yes, he was. Second part, how many people were at the rally on the 11th? He says around 200. Next jury question, number 12. Can you see any differences between the different militias? Is their clothing different? Identifying features that you can identify the Arizona militia from the Montana militia? He said no, and he was not given that kind of information. Question number 13. This is my favorite. Did your conversation between you and JT give you a reason to look into him more, considering that his comment about the ammo? He said no. They were not familiar with him, and he decided not to look into it, or it wasn't his choice to look into it. So here we go. We don't know if this JT person is an informant. We know they've been talking about Mark Kessler inside today, so we don't know if that's an informant, another informant, and the jury's picking up on this. Question number 14. What were you wearing? He was wearing Wrangler's boots, a cowboy hat. He was not armed or concealed carrying. That was the second part of that question. But he said he wasn't, or he didn't think so at the time. And then they asked about what vehicle he drove. Isn't this a great jury? They have some really wonderful questions. He said it was an unmarked rental the first time and possibly a Dodge pickup the second time. And then number 15, how can the statements from an unknown individual, JT, impact the defendants? Why is this being brought against the defendants? I do have to say that jury questions are now my favorite part of the court day. Thank you for holding that. Because, but you gotta hold it facing me there. Because they're the ones that can actually ask questions, and I don't think the judge can just not ask their question. She can refuse to answer their question, but she just can't ask it. Okay, then the sixth one, could the general camp and the militia camp be put on a map? So then we took a break, they brought a map in, and they put the two camps on that map. He said, and then they went back into questioning. Tanasi asked how many people on the 11th. He said at the height, when there was a media, the talk or whatever, that there was probably about 200. So now the next person they bring in is Alex Ellis. We remember Alex Ellis from the last trial. He was with Michael Flynn from Utah. He is a reporter that was covering the protest. Michael Flynn is deceased, and they're bringing in Alex Ellis to get his video into the courtroom. They don't need this video. They're getting this in because Michael Flynn narrates all of his video in a very negative way for the defendants. So Alex Ellis was actually 17 at the time of the ranch, and he was just going around with Flynn. So they bring in all of these things. Alex Ellis identifies Eric. They just take short clips out of different events, and they wait until there's people in the crowd, and it pans by, and they're like, okay, well, this person's a defendant here. Do you recognize this person? Alex Ellis did say that after, in between the two videos, that while they were waiting for the sheriff, people got on the stage and they sang songs and they read poetry. They sound like terrorists, don't they? At that point, the judge says so there's an objection to the fact that this is not his evidence, and then chain of command. Judge says there is no rule that a person has to be the person who took the video, just that it is fair and accurate representation. They're objecting to the voice of Flynn. he says they are going to take the cattle by force. They are going to shut down the freeway. This is the type of narration that he's doing over his videos. It's really negative towards the defendants, and that's why the defendants don't want this video to be played. The video being played without the audio would be fine, but the reason they're trying to play this is to get the audio in. Then they play another video. This video is not Flynn's video because you see Flynn and Alex Ellis in the video. I believe it's Dennis Michael Lynch's video. And my question here is, they play the video, and this is Cliven's speech. It's Cliven's speech in between when they're waiting for the sheriff. And they do the national anthem and then Cliven's speech. First they play it with Flynn's video where he talks about how they're going to go down and do all this. Then they play it without Flynn. And my question is, why do we need to play it twice? And who recorded the second one? So, you know, all rules are thrown out the window here. We're just going to bring whatever we want in. They bring up the stage. He said some people at the stage were oath keepers. He did not see where they came from or where they went. They brought a map of the wash. He, you know, did lines of where they were parking and this, that, and the other thing. There was an objection to foundation and chain of custody. This is coming from all the defendants. Once again, the judge says this is not a fair objection. She overrules it. They play another video, one of Todd walking down the freeway. I'm not really sure why they're pushing Todd into this trial so much, possibly because he's already been convicted. It looks like we've had 13 sidebars in 2 days. They keep having all these different sidebars to keep everything away from the jury. Once again, now when they have a sidebar, because they're trying to keep the jury from feeling negative about these sidebars, they've got a big bowl of candy now, and they give candy out to all the jurors while they're having the sidebar. Isn't that interesting? We can't have a piece of gum, but they can have a big bowl of candy that they're passing around. There's new signs outside the courtroom that says your bottled water has to be 16 ounces or lower, but it also says that they have the right to deny or approve people other than that. One good thing I can say, I know they're all watching, so hello everyone. I really appreciated the fact that you did not make him get out of his wheelchair today. If there's one good thing that about going down here and doing these, is that small injustice is like that can be rectified. So I appreciate it, marshals. I appreciate that you didn't make him get out of his wheelchair to get into the courtroom today. The last time. So that's really awesome. Other than that, we have not gotten into the cross-examination of Alex Ellis or the jury questions coming from Alex Ellis, so this should be interesting. Oh, and yeah, it was Ashley that was kicked out of the courtroom for the entire trial. So apparently during one of the sidebars, she was trying to figure out jury numbers and had pointed in that direction, and so they kicked her out of the courtroom. They said, you're too animated, you can't be in here, and you're out of the courtroom for the entire trial. They are coming after me, they don't want me in there, they don't want me out here doing this. Of course they don't want anyone that can get the truth out. So it's getting tougher. They're going to try to take our support away inside the courtroom. There's a minimal amount of people in there now that people have kind of gone away for the weekend. We had a really good crowd for the weekend. People are always coming down. If you're local and you can get down here, we need extra people because they're trying to eliminate us one by one. I know they'll be coming after me. There was another part of Flynn's video. Here, I got to tilt it up just a little bit. There was another part of Flynn's video. This is the part that everyone always laughs, and I think it kind of takes away his sting of what his commentary. But at one point he's saying, there's kids in the wash, there's armed children in the wash. Oh wait, no, that guy has a beard. So everybody laughs again. Of course, our side, we've already heard it before, so we didn't laugh as loud as the first time. I thought we would all be kicked out of the courtroom the first time. The jury did laugh just as loud. And then they played, once again, they played Eric Parker's interview with Flynn. Now, mind you, when Eric Parker interviewed with Flynn, Flynn was going down the freeway trying to push his narrative like the media always does. He was going up to everyone and saying, what about the kids in the wash? That was his big thing. Kids in the wash. And they're endangering the children down in the wash. And so he was going down the line and he was harassing these old ladies about kids in the wash. And so my husband decided he was going to take it upon himself to get that guy away from harassing those old ladies. And he brought him over and said, why don't you talk to me? And he said that, yes, he did believe that having kids down in that wash was a good thing, and it maybe was the only thing that prevented a Waco or a Ruby Ridge style event from happening at that time. They're using this evidence against him. They're going to try to prevent him from talking about a use of force. He also brought up at the end, he said he believed that what happened that day was a great thing and that it should continue to happen. That there's a rancher in Texas that they're trying to take 30 acres from him? 30,000 acres from him. I don't know, it's some large amount. And they said, you need to get down to Texas, get on a bridge, show him force. And they're not going to let him explain what he meant by show him force in the courtroom, I'm guessing. That was something that they tried to get in from his testimony earlier. They weren't able to get it in. So hopefully, since they brought it up, we can talk about it. Once again, they are preventing us from putting on our defense. We're hopeful that the jury will see through this. I'm really enjoying the jury questions, probably the highlight of the day. If you want to see a production, come down and join us in the courtroom. We can use you. We can use you outside. Share this and get the news out. We also stand with such a great event. We are going to do a stand 2. The date is October 5th. So keep looking for updates. We're going to go bigger and better than last time. All right, that's all we've got.